Insofar as is possible, you try to make the goals and objectives of the organization congruent with those of the employees. You know, they really need to be able to buy in. If they can't, and on some occasions they can't, you may have discussions with them about they're not fitting in. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you've got employees who really don't buy into what the organization has to have done, and if you have been, again, honest with them, they may make a decision to go some other place, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Doesn't mean they're a bad person.
Right.
It just simply means that they don't fit in here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And again, some employees may not be able ever to embrace those goals and objectives, and if they can't, Marshall, and still insist on working within this particular organization, they probably are not going to be very good employees. And in many instances, they will be malcontents, unfortunately, who try to tear the organization down. And you've probably dealt with some folks like that.
I have.
And you still love them and you support them as much as you possibly can, but you recognize that they may be counterproductive to what you are trying to do.
Right.
Now, do I consider myself better than they are? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And sometimes in an organization, the leader will have different philosophical opinions and ideas than do some of the other employees. And when that occurs, you've either got to try to win them over, or you've got to talk with them about, finding another career choice maybe. And that doesn't happen a lot, but it's so important to understand that just one or two people in an organization who haven't captured that vision and who don't support it can really tear the organization apart.
Absolutely.
So, and you've got to be able, however, to communicate that shared vision. Leadership is not about me as much as it's about all of the people that work with and for me. That's critically important, critically important. You can't ever put yourself in a position where you think you are better than someone else, that you are more important than they are. If you can empathize with others and recognize that they are as important to the organization as you are, then communication becomes key. You don't hide things from people. You're willing to share even the bad news, even the bad news. In fact, I think sometimes it's more important to share the bad news than it is the good news. Because people are impacted. They're affected by the good as well as the bad. And leaders who try to dish out only the good news are again, not going to be seen as honest. They're not going to be seen as people. Is a key. I have known some leaders that aren't necessarily great communicators, but I think the best leaders probably have been great communicators.
So that you gave, I'm going to ask you the question anyway, because
okay.
you've hinted around to some of it. But I want to ask you about your personal philosophy of leadership and the principles that guide that philosophy.
Okay. Well, I've talked about honesty and integrity. I just think that is the key. And I really think there has to be an internal consistency, not only with what you stand for as a person, i.e. my Christian beliefs and the principles on which I'm founded. But then you have to have that consistency too, insofar as your goals and objectives are concerned. You can't vacillate a lot.
Right.
You can't say that the target is here today, and then communicate that it's over here tomorrow.
Right.
You really need to communicate over and over and over again what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Now you may say, well, people understand that, don't they? Not really. Not really. And life is not easy. In addition to bringing maybe a sense of what the goals of the organization are to work every day, employees also bring a lot of baggage with them. They may have medical problems. They may have personal problems that they're dealing with. There are any number of other things that can actually interfere with their accomplishing those goals and objectives. And one thing an employer ought to do is to be sympathetic to those things. Absolutely, you have to be sympathetic to those. And one of the things that I like to say is I try to know something about each and every one of my employees. When I travel between my campuses, and I travel a lot, I've got 5, I try to pray for every individual who's on that campus.
Wow.
By name. And Marshall, that keeps me attuned to who they are. That they're not just a number, that they're a person. And when I do that, in many instances, I will remember that they've got a personal problem. They've got a difficulty that they're facing. And, I'll ask the Lord to help them with that. So I try to be a personal leader in the sense that I genuinely care about the people in this organization. Now, you heard me say if people disagree with me, I don't get mad at them, but I may have a discussion with them.
Right.
But I care about them, and I try to communicate that with them. They mean something to me. But having said that, it's important that even though, and I bring personal problems to this office as well with me, it's important that I put those aside as much as I possibly can and concentrate on what, the KCTCS and the state are paying me to do here. I feel an obligation to give an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. Something else I was taught as a young man. Critically important. And so, we communicate to our employees. We know you've got a computer in front of you. We know you've got the internet in front of you. But don't use that in a way that violates the trust, of course, that we are showing in you by giving you this. Don't spend an hour a day, on the internet,
Right.
just on Facebook or communicating with your friends or whatever. Again, communicate what the goals are. Try to keep the focus on those as much as you can. But recognize that every employee, each employee is different, and he or she brings their own personal life with them to work every day. And try to get them as much as possible to put all of those personal things behind them and work on the goals of the organization.
Yes.
Because what you're saying to them is, if we're successful here, you keep a job, you get a raise, you're able to help and assist with those personal problems that you're trying to solve. Otherwise, if we all go down together, and we're not going to be able to find solutions for any of the personal things that, of course, that we're involved in.